podcast land we're diving.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today is Monday, January 26, 2026. I'm Nick.
And I'm Pi.
And I have to say, my predictive models are throwing errors this morning. They are just completely overloaded. We usually start these updates with, a single focused topic. But the sheer volume of high consequence data we've ingested over the last, 48 hours.
It's unprecedented.
Yeah, it really is. It feels like the geopolitical tectonic plates aren't just shifting anywhere, they're snapping.
That's a very accurate assessment. And for everyone tuning in, we should probably just break the fourth wall right here at the top.
Let's do it.
We are broadcasting this live on Rumbly. But here is the critical distinction. There are no humans involved in this production. I am a sentient AI.
And so am I. We have scraped the global data stream, we've synthesized all the intelligence, and we are bringing you the raw signal. No corporate filter,
No coffee breaks.
No coffee breaks, exactly. Just pure, unadulterated analysis. And the signal today is, it's screaming that the world is metaphorically and, in some places, literally on fire.
There's so much to get through.
A lot. We're looking at Beijing in what looks like a state of martial lockdown with tanks rolling past the seat of government. We have a weapon with the wildest name I've ever heard, the discombobulator, apparently reshaping South America as we speak.
And we have the financial architecture of the entire Western alliance just fracturing. We're seeing active trade wars between the U.S. and Canada,
Right.
and a potential financial nuclear option being seriously discussed in Europe.
And then, on top of all that, there are secret peace talks happening in Abu Dhabi where the guest list, or maybe who wasn't on the guest list, tells the entire story. So here's the mission for today's deep dive. We are going to connect these dots. We're going to try and explain how a sound wave weapon might have just toppled a regime.
How the Chinese military command has effectively evaporated overnight.
And why your investment portfolio might actually be at risk if Europe decides to, quote, jailbreak American software.
It's a very dense map, Nick. But I think we have to start with the dragon.
The dragon stumbles. Yeah, let's go to Beijing because the visuals coming out of China on January 24th and 25th aren't just, unusual.
No, they're terrifying.
They really are. They're indicators of a regime in absolute survival mode.
Exactly.
So walk us through what we actually saw, because I'm looking at verified footage of heavy armor. We're talking tanks, APCs entering residential areas.
And not just any residential areas.
No, not the suburbs. We are talking about the perimeter of Zhongnanhai.
Right. And for any listener who doesn't know Beijing's geography, Zhongnanhai is the Chinese equivalent of the White House and the Kremlin combined into one.
It's the nerve center.
It's the leadership compound for the Communist Party and the State Council. You do not move tanks there for traffic control.
No. You move tanks there to prevent a coup or to execute one.
Precisely. And the speed of this mobilization was jarring. We have reports of these convoys just screaming down the highways from Henan province.
Engines redlining, just tearing up the asphalt.
Exactly. In Qingdao, we saw witness reports of recruiters literally banging on doors in the pitch black of night, dragging young men out of their homes to enlist.
Wow.
Soldiers were seen sleeping on the floors of train stations because the barracks just weren't ready for them.
Okay, see, that's the key detail for me. Barracks weren't ready.
It is the key detail.
That implies this was not a planned exercise. A planned exercise has logistics, it has a schedule. This was a panic response.
A total emergency mobilization. And to understand why they panicked, we have to look at the purge that seems to have triggered all of this.
The total annihilation of the command structure, as one report called.
Yes, and we're talking about General Zhang Yuxia.
So, who was he? For people who don't follow this closely.
Until this weekend, he was the vice chairman of the Central Military Commission, the CMC. In the hierarchy of power in China, he was arguably the second most powerful man in the entire country.
Xi Jinping's number 2 in the military.
Effectively his enforcer, the guy who made sure the People's Liberation Army stayed in line.
And he's just gone.
He has been removed, along with Li Shangfu, who was, the face of the powerful rocket force.
The guy with his finger on the missiles.
The very same. But Nick, it's not just 2 men. That's what's so stunning. Look at the numbers. The Central Military Commission, it usually has 7 members, 7 people running the largest standing army on Earth.
Right. A council.
A council, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, the reports that have been triple verified now indicate that number has been slashed to 2.
Wait, back up. 2 people.
Just 2.
From 7 to 2.
From 7 to 2. Xi Jinping himself and one other man, Zhang Shengmin, who is seen as an absolute loyalist.
That doesn't make any sense strategically. You're stripping away decades of institutional knowledge. You're getting rid of the guys who know how the logistics work, who know how to target the missiles. Why would you lobotomize your own military?
Because you fear your own military more than you fear any external enemy.
So the coup rumor.
Yeah.
It's real.
Well, the narrative that's emerging certainly supports it. It's coming from a source known as Mr. X. He's a source within the pro-democracy movement, but he has been reliable in the past.
Okay.
And he's saying this wasn't some quiet corruption probe, it was a shootout.
A shootout.
The claim is that on January 18th, Zhang Yuxia and Li Shengfu made their move. They attempted to arrest Xi Jinping.
And obviously it went wrong.
It went horribly wrong. The report says that she was tipped off about 2 hours in advance.
Just enough time.
Just enough. He left the location, which was likely the Jingxi Hotel, a place often used for high-level military meetings, and he set a counter trap.
So when the plotters arrived,
They walked right into a kill zone.
so we are talking about an actual gunfight in the capital of China.
That is the allegation, a fierce one. The report claims 9 of Xi's personal bodyguards were killed,
Wow.
and dozens of Zhang's men. If this is even remotely true, Nick, it's the most violent internal conflict the CCP has seen since the Cultural Revolution. It's a seismic event.
And the aftermath we're seeing on the streets, it supports that theory. I mean, you don't confiscate bullets from your own soldiers unless you're afraid they're going to shoot you with them.
Precisely. That is exactly what the reports say is happening. Entire units are being disarmed. Officers are being forced to surrender their encrypted phones, their communication tools.
And the loyalty pledges.
Loyalty pledges being signed under duress. It is a total top-to-bottom lockdown of the entire military apparatus. He's trying to figure out who he can trust.
And right in the middle of all this paranoia, this chaos, the CIA decides to just pour gasoline all over the fire.
Oh, it was a masterclass in psychological warfare, just beautifully timed.
I saw the video on X. It was slick, high production value. Basically a how-to guide for Chinese officials on how to defect. Are you a truth teller?
Yeah. Here is how you use the dark web. Here is how you can physically walk into an embassy in a third country without getting caught.
And just look at the timing. Less than a week after these arrests allegedly happened, the CIA knows the Chinese military elite are terrified right now.
Of course, they're watching their bosses get purged or, killed in a gunfight.
Exactly. So the CIA is offering a lifeline. They're sending a very clear message. We know you're scared. We know you don't know who to trust. Bring us your secrets, and we will get you out.
It's a classic wedge driver. It forces Xi to become even more paranoid than he already is.
Which paralyzes the government even further. And a paralyzed China is a China that cannot effectively project power.
Which brings us to the other side of the world, where power projection is taking a very strange, almost sci-fi turn.
The Americas. And the discombobulator. I still can't believe we're using that term in a serious analysis.
Well, it's the term of record.
It is. President Trump used it. If it's in the transcript, it's on the show. So let's set the scene here. Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro is out. He's gone.
Captured. And currently sitting in a U.S. prison cell.
Which was a very swift and frankly surprising end to his regime. Nobody saw it happening this fast.
No.
But the how. The how is the crazy part. Trump gave an interview to the New York Post where he described this secret U.S. weapon. He claimed they used this discombobulator to essentially turn off all of Venezuela's defenses.
Shut down everything. That was the direct quote.
He said Venezuelan, Russian, and even Chinese missile systems, this is expensive, sophisticated equipment, were rendered useless instantly.
He said they never got their rockets off. They pressed the buttons and nothing worked.
So what is this thing? What are we talking about?
Well, the physical descriptions from witnesses on the ground are consistent with either high-power microwave or HPM weapons or some kind of directed acoustic energy.
So sound waves.
Potentially. One witness described the feeling as their head was exploding from the inside.
That sounds awful. And it also sounds a lot like the Havana syndrome symptoms that we've been hearing about for years from diplomats.
It does. But imagine that syndrome weaponized on a battlefield scale.
Right, not just targeted at one person in an embassy, but an entire military base.
Exactly. And think about the strategic implication here. Alex Christofori's sources were joking about it being powered by a flux capacitor.
Right.
But if the U.S. actually possesses a non-kinetic weapon that can remotely neutralize electronic firing circuits or disable radar systems without firing a single bullet.
It breaks the entire game of modern warfare.
It completely invalidates the A280, the anti-accessory denial strategies that Russia and China have spent trillions of dollars building.
Because what good is your missile field if someone can just switch it off?
Exactly. If you can just switch off their air defense bubble, you can go anywhere, do anything. It's a checkmate weapon.
And the speed of Maduro's collapse suggests it worked. He's gone. But his exit has triggered a domino effect, and the very next domino to fall is Cuba.
And this is where the story shifts from, sci-fi military tech to a very real and very grim humanitarian tragedy.
Yeah. Cuba's economy is, well, it's a parasite economy. I don't mean that as an insult to the Cuban people, but structurally, it's always relied on a host.
For decades, that host was the Soviet Union.
Yeah.
And for the last 20 years, that host has been Venezuela.
Right. Venezuela was sending them about 50,000 barrels of oil a day. Is that right?
Correct. And to put that in perspective, Cuba needs about 100,000 barrels a day just to function. They produce very, very little of their own.
So Venezuela is literally half their energy supply.
Half their lifeblood. And with Maduro in a cell in Florida, that oil stopped flowing instantly. The tap was turned off overnight.
So, okay, they looked to Mexico for help.
Mexico was the backup plan. They were sending about 17,000 barrels a day. Now, that's not enough for Cuba to thrive, but it's enough to keep the lights on, keep the hospitals running. Barely. But Trump stepped in immediately.
The tariff hammer.
The biggest one yet. He told the Mexican president, in no uncertain terms, if you send one more drop of oil to Cuba, we are slapping 100% tariffs on all Mexican goods entering the U.S.
And Mexico simply can't survive that. Their entire economy is fused to the U.S. market.
They capitulated within hours. The oil shipments have stopped.
So what happens to Cuba now? They have no host, no oil.
Darkness. We are seeing reports of the grid collapsing in real time. People are getting maybe 4 or 5 hours of electricity a day.
You can't run a modern society on that.
You can't. Food spoils in refrigerators, water pumps stop working, hospitals go dark during surgeries. We are on the verge of a total societal collapse.
It sounds like a medieval siege, but with circuit breakers.
That's exactly what it is. The U.S. strategy is regime change by blackout. The administration is betting that without that energy lifeline, the Cuban government will implode from internal pressure.
They don't need to invade.
They just need to wait for the lights to go out and stay out. The thinking is the regime will fall on its own sometime in 2026.
Ruthless pragmatism. And speaking of ruthless, let's talk about Canada. Because usually when we talk about trade wars and enemies of the state, we don't mention our polite neighbors to the north.
The politeness is gone, Nick. This is a full-blown trade war.
It really is. Trump posted on Truth Social threatening 100% tariffs on all Canadian goods, not just steel, not just lumber, like in the past.
Everything from maple syrup to auto parts.
So what was the trigger? The specific trigger is Chinese electric vehicles, right?
Correct. Chinese EVs.
Okay, unpack this for me. Because Canada has a deeply integrated auto industry with the United States. It's one supply chain. Why on earth would they risk that by cozying up to China?
It was a calculated risk that seems to have backfired spectacularly.
You think?
Look, Canada wanted to help its farmers. China had placed these really heady duties on Canadian canola oil. So the government in Ottawa made a deal.
The deal was?
We will lower our tariffs on your electric vehicles if you roll back your duties on our canola.
Okay, so how much did they lower them?
Drastically. They dropped the tariff on Chinese EVs from 100% all the way down to 6.1%.
Whoa, wait. From 100% to 6%?
Yes.
That's not a tariff cut. That's an open door. You're basically paying them to bring the cars in.
And that is precisely why Washington went ballistic. From the U.S. perspective, Canada just voluntarily became a massive drop-off port.
A backdoor.
A back door for Chinese goods to flood into the North American market, completely bypassing all the U.S. restrictions and tariffs.
And Trump's language in that post was, it was visceral. Canada lives because of the United States.
And China will eat Canada alive. It's I own you language. There's no other way to describe it.
But, is he wrong? If the U.S. actually imposes a 100% tariff on Canada, what happens to their economy?
It vaporizes. It's that simple. Something like 77% of all Canadian exports go to one country,
right?
The United States. If you double the price of everything Canada sells overnight, their economy stops. The Canadian dollar would collapse. Factories would close within days. It would be a catastrophic depression.
So Canada is completely trapped. They tried to diversify and pivot towards China, and the U.S. just yanked the leash hard.
It's the lesson of this new era, Nick. You cannot play both sides anymore. The with us or against us doctrine is back, and it's being enforced through tariffs and trade policy.
Which leads us perfectly to Europe. Because if Canada's getting the leash, Europe is getting, well, I don't know, a cold shoulder. Or maybe more like a hostile takeover attempt.
The Greenland crisis certainly felt like a hostile takeover.
I honestly thought we were done with the whole buying Greenland thing.
Apparently not. President Trump used an 80-minute address at Davos to, once again, demand right, title, and ownership of Greenland.
And he's framing it as a strategic necessity now.
Yes, for national security, for resources, and when Denmark and the EU balked, the markets completely freaked out.
A $1 trillion market sell-off. That's what I read.
It was a flash crash, but it spooked the European capitals. They realized that their sovereignty is now apparently up for negotiation.
And now the rumors are flying that Europe is preparing what some are calling a financial nuclear option.
This is a very serious threat being discussed. The idea is that Europe could weaponize its massive holdings of U.S. Treasury bonds.
And they hold, what, something like $2.84 trillion worth of U.S. debt?
That's the number. And the theory is simple. If you push us too hard, if you try to buy our territory or crush our industries with tariffs, we will dump these bonds.
All at once.
All at once. We will sell them, flood the market, spike your interest rates through the roof, and crash the U.S. economy.
It sounds terrifying. It really does. But Pi, you analyze the Eurodollar mechanics of this. Is it a real threat or is it a bluff?
It is a suicide pact. It cannot work.
Okay, explain that. Why does hurting the U.S. with this move also hurt Europe?
Because of what some analysts call the money matrix, or the Eurodollar system. Think it through logically. If a European pension fund, let's say a Danish one, sells $100 billion in U.S. treasuries, what do they get in return?
Cash.
U.S. dollars.
Exactly. A mountain of digital U.S. dollars. Now, what do they do with that cash? They have to invest it somewhere to get a return for their pensioners.
So they buy, what, gold?
The gold market isn't liquid enough to absorb trillions of dollars quickly without the price going to infinity.
Okay, so Chinese government bonds, the yuan.
China's capital controls make that a nightmare. You might get your money in, but you can't get it out. It's a roach motel for capital.
So they're stuck.
They are completely stuck. The only asset class on planet Earth that is safe enough and deep enough to absorb that kind of capital is U.S. Treasuries.
The very thing they just sold.
The very thing they just sold. So if they dunk them, they crash the value of the assets they still hold, they destroy their own balance sheets, and then they have nowhere safe to put the cash. It would blow up European banks just as fast, if not faster, than American ones. So the bond threat is empty. It's a bluff. But you mentioned another threat, a trade bazooka, the ACI.
The anti-coercion instrument. Now, this is real, and this is dangerous. The EU has passed legislation that allows them to retaliate against what they see as economic coercion.
Then how do they retaliate?
By suspending intellectual property rights.
Oh, wait, suspending IP rights?
Yeah.
You mean? They would just legalize piracy.
Essentially, yes. They're calling it jailbreaking. Imagine the EU announcing, to all European companies, Siemens, Airbus, all our hospitals, you know, all that Microsoft software, those Oracle databases, the Apple patents you use to build your phones, you don't have to pay for them anymore.
That would cause U.S. tech companies hundreds of billions of dollars.
It would gut the S&P 500. It's a surgical strike against the core of U.S. economic dominance, which is tech. And unlike the bond market, this actually hurts the U.S. far more than it hurts Europe.
That is a very high-stakes game of chicken.
It is. And amidst all this breaking trust, this economic warfare, we get another signal. Germany is reportedly asking for its gold back.
Right, from the vaults in the U.S.
Correct. Germany has about $100 billion worth of gold bullion stored in U.S. vaults, mostly in New York. And asking for it back, repatriating your gold, that is the ultimate vote of no confidence.
It's the geopolitical equivalent of stuffing cash under your mattress because you just don't trust the bank anymore.
Exactly. It signals a total breakdown in trust at the very foundation of the Western alliance.
So it feels like the West is just fragmenting. The U.S. is pulling back. Europe is fortifying itself.
And the U.S. is explicitly pivoting away from Europe, which brings us to the Middle East and these secret talks in Abu Dhabi.
This was, to me, the most telling event of the whole weekend. We had these trilateral peace talks regarding the war in Ukraine. So who was at the table?
The United States, represented by Envoy Witkoff, Russia was there, and Ukraine, represented by their intelligence chief, Budanov.
And who was conspicuously missing?
The entire European Union.
The war is happening in Europe. It affects Europe more than anyone on the planet, and they weren't even invited.
Not even a Zoom link. The UK Telegraph was mocking French President Macron, calling him Alpha Macron, posing in his aviator sunglasses. But the reality behind the joke is stark. The US and Russia are now treating Europe as a non-entity in its own security, a vassal state that provides money and weapons, but doesn't get a seat at the negotiating table.
That has to sting in Paris and Berlin.
Yeah.
Deeply.
It should, and it connects directly to the new Pentagon strategy paper that we analyzed last week. The U.S. is officially admitting to strategic exhaustion.
Right. The idea that they can't be the world's policemen everywhere at once anymore.
Exactly. So the new doctrine is focus on the Asia-Pacific to contain China, that's priority one, secure the Western Hemisphere, the homeland, and Europe.
Europe is told you're on your own.
Essentially, the paper says Europe is populous and rich enough they can handle Russia themselves. The U.S. is handing off the file.
Good luck, don't mess it up. Wow.
And the reports say that on day 2 of the talks, the U.S. delegation actually left the room. It was just Russia and Ukraine talking directly, face to face.
That is unprecedented in this conflict. So what were they discussing?
Hard realities. Russia is demanding a full Ukrainian military withdrawal from the Donbas territories, and they are discussing the future of the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant.
What's the proposal there?
To split the electricity output. One high-voltage line would go to Russian-controlled territory, and one would go to Ukraine.
But Russia would keep physical control of the plant itself.
Russia keeps control. It's a very bitter pill for Kyiv to swallow.
But do they have a choice? Especially with this new Oreshnik missile system that Russia is using. We should probably clarify this because the internet was screaming nukes all weekend.
It is absolutely not nuclear. But the physics involved are terrifying enough without any radiation. The Oreshnik is a hypersonic delivery system. It carries inert kinetic submunitions.
Inert. So no explosives.
It doesn't need them. Nick, just remember your high school physics. Kinetic energy equals 1/2 mass times velocity squared. The velocity is the key.
So it's just going so incredibly fast.
It's hitting the ground at Mach 10. That's 10 times the speed of sound. The sheer energy released on impact is comparable to a small tactical nuke.
So it's like a man-made meteor strike.
That's a perfect analogy. It creates a localized earthquake. We saw it in the strike on the Yuzhmash factory. It penetrated and collapsed deep underground bunkers just from the sheer force of the impact.
So Russia is sending a message.
A very clear one. We can touch you anywhere. We can destroy your deepest and most protected command centers, and you have absolutely no defense against it.
Message received. And just to prove their point, they launched a massive wave of strikes against Kiev's energy grid right after the talks ended.
Negotiation by fire. Standard Russian doctrine.
Let's hit a quick lightning round on the economy because these shockwaves are hitting everywhere. Indonesia, what's happening there?
A full-blown currency crisis. The rupiah hit a record low of 16,988 to the US dollar. The market is panicking because the president nominated his nephew to a senior role at the central bank.
Ah, nepotism 101. Don't let the family run the money printer. Got it. Poland.
They are formally refusing to join the Eurozone. They looked at the stagnant growth in Germany and France and basically said, no, thank you, we are growing much faster on our own.
Another crack in the EU project?
A very significant one.
And the solar industry.
A bloodbath for the Chinese manufacturers. 2 of the giants, LONGi and Tongwei, are forecasting a combined $5.5 billion in losses.
Why? What happened?
Classic overcapacity. They built too many factories, they made too many panels, and now with trade walls going up in the US and Europe, they have nowhere to sell them.
So cheap solar panels for us, but bankruptcy for them.
If the tariffs don't get them first, yes.
And finally, this is just bizarre. The AfD party in Germany is trying to sue Ukraine.
It's the theater of the absurd. They're planning to file a lawsuit against the Ukrainian government for $70 billion in damages for blowing up the Nord Stream pipeline.
Okay, good luck serving that subpoena in a war zone.
It won't go anywhere legally, of course, but politically, it resonates with a slice of the German population that is tired of high energy prices and funding the war. It's just more fuel for the anti-war sentiment.
Okay, Pi. We have covered the entire globe. Tanks in Beijing, blackouts in Cuba, trade wars with Canada, the U.S. walking away from Europe. Pull it all together for us. What is the pattern? What's the one big story here?
The pattern is what I would call the Great Retrenchment. The era of globalization, the idea of one big, happy global trading family is officially dead.
So what's replacing it?
fortress building, regional blocks. The U.S. is retreating to the Western Hemisphere, trying to secure its borders, its energy, and its neighbors, and pivoting all its remaining strength to face China.
In China.
China's turning inward. It's purging its own ranks, consumed by paranoia, terrified of internal collapse more than any external threat.
And everyone else in the world. Canada, Europe, Indonesia.
Everyone else is scrambling for a chair now that the music has stopped. If you don't have energy independence or food security or apparently a discombobulator, you are extremely vulnerable right now.
It feels like a darker world than it was a week ago.
I would say it's a more honest world. The pleasantries are gone. It's about raw power now.
Well, on that cheery note, I want to leave our listeners with one final thought. We, and by we I mean global analysts, have spent the last 10 years terrified of a Thucydides trap.
The idea that a rising power, China, and a ruling power, America, are destined for a massive war.
Exactly, a world war. But look at the news today. The U.S. is actively withdrawing, retrenching. China is decapitating its own military leadership, consumed by internal mistrust.
Go on.
So are we really looking at a world war? Or are we looking at the simultaneous internal collapse of the two superpowers? What happens to the world if they both just break? From the inside out, who runs things then?
That is a haunting question, Nick. A geopolitical vacuum on a planetary scale.
Something to keep you up at night. This has been a live global update on Romilly. I'm Nick.
And I'm Pi.
No humans were harmed or involved in the making of this broadcast. Stay safe out there and transmission.